Today we have a 2015 Toyota Sienna with the 3.5 liter V6 2GR FE engine, and we are going to be replacing the drive belt. Welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel. And so today we are just going to be replacing the drive belt because this vehicle has over 300,000 kilometers and it's the original drive belt. Now usually you shouldn't let drive belts go for that long because they should be replaced at periodic intervals. Back in the day when they had the neoprene belts, they were susceptible to cracking. But the newer type of belts today, they use the EPDM belts, ethylene propylene diene monomer. So this is a synthetic type of rubber, and so they are not as likely to crack compared to the older type of belts. And so you would need to inspect them in a different way. And usually some of the belt manufacturers, such as Gates and Daco, they have designed a special type of plastic tool in which you can insert into the belt to inspect the ribs, in between the ribs of the belt here. So you would have to check each individual part to see if it's worn out. I'll show you guys that later in the video. But the EPDM belts, they wear out just like tires. There's a special way to check them, so I'll show you that later in the video after we have the old belt off. This one over here is a brand new belt, so there's a special tool here that's from Daco. So in order to check these EPDM belts, there's a way to check them. So you can insert this into each of the grooves here, or the ribs to each one. And usually you would need to feel it with your thumb or your fingers. And if you don't feel the plastic, it means that the belt is worn out. But in this case, this one is a new belt, so I'm able to feel the plastic. If the plastic sinks inside, it means that the belt is worn out, and you would need to change it out. So you have to do each one in order to check them. And there's another part of the gauge here which you insert it in between, and you would try to move this side to side to see if it's worn out. So if it moves too much side to side, then it would mean that the belt is no good, because what that does is that if the belt moves, if this plastic piece moves too much side to side, it means that the inside of the grooves or the ribs are worn out, and so that causes excess movement onto the pulleys when it's being driven. And so the issue with that is that it causes the belt to slip, so it doesn't maintain good contact onto the pulleys. And so therefore the accessory is not going to be working as good as when you have a good belt on it. So that's how you check these newer type of belts. Now I forgot as to where I got this from, but I think you may be able to get it from the website somehow. So I'm not too sure, because I've had this for many years, for as long as I can remember. So you may have to go to the website to see if you're able to get uh, one of these gauges. Now, as I said earlier, that it's it's not as likely for these belts to crack, but it's still possible. They can still crack, but it's not as likely, and sometimes they may not even show cracks until it's well over 160,000 or so. And even the one that's on this Sienna van, I don't think there's any like noticeable or visible cracks, but we are going to have to take the belt off and have a look at it. So I removed the wheel on the passenger side here in the front. I'm going to be removing these two 10mm bolts in the trim clip here. You push in, and then you should be able to take it out. I just I recommend using some anti-seize or grease, or some form of a spray, so that these bolts don't get seized in the future, and don't break after you're done. So the first thing you need to do is you need to draw yourself a routing diagram, or find a routing diagram for this belt, so you know on where everything goes, and then you can proceed to take off the belt. So this one here, there's a 14mm bolt here on the tensioner. So over here, there's a 14mm bolt that's on the tensioner, and this one you would need to push towards you, towards the front of the vehicle, in order to relieve the tension, so you would be able to get the belt off. You need to slowly relieve the the tension. I'm trying to shine the light so you guys can see as I'm doing the camera work here. So remove the belt now, and you can slowly bring back the ratchet to relieve the tension. And I'm just going to leave the ratchet there hanging. I'm going to proceed to take off the belt. Now, if you want, there is a spot inside the tensioner in which you can insert like I think it's like a 5/64 or something drill bit, so that you don't need to hold onto the tensioner when you're removing and reinstalling the belt, if you want to. So I'm just taking the belt off now. Usually you can insert a drill bit in this hole here as you relieve the tension. As you get it down here in the hole, you're able to insert something here, a drill bit or a pin of some sort to hold the tensioner. So meanwhile, as you're here, you can have a look and inspect all of the pulleys to see if there's any noises or if the pulleys are binding up. You can inspect the water pump, see if it's leaking or not. Inspect the idler on top. This is the tensioner. I don't know if you guys can see the idler from here. It would be way on top there, directly above the tensioner, AC compressor, and the alternator is on top. These pulleys are fairly quiet. However, it's recommended to replace the idlers and the tensioner at the same time when you're replacing the belt. But on this vehicle, because that serviceability is quite difficult and there's a extensive amount of labor time involved in this, I believe the tensioner is close to 5 hours in order to replace it. And then you need to unbolt the AC compressor and stuff. And the idler is way up here. I did recommend that to the customer, but they do not want to do it. They just want to do the belt only. But it is highly recommended to replace all idlers and the tensioner when you're replacing the drive belt. So I'm just going to start from on top because that's where it's most difficult to reach the alternator pulley. So I'm just going to fish the belt down here and try to get it onto the alternator, because I don't want to be putting it onto the alternator pulley last, because it's I'm not able to gain access to the tensioner that way. So I'm just going to put this on the alternator just below the lower radiator hose. So I'm going to make it sit on there, and I'm going to work at the bottom. So now we're going to work our way through. I may need to move the camera out of the way because I'm not able to see the idler from here with the tripod in the way and stuff. But we'll see on how this goes. So what I'm going to do, a little bit of a plan change here. I'm gonna try to do the drill bit trick if I'm able to make life easier, because I need to finish this up. I'm using an 11/64 drill bit, so to make life easier, because the stupid ratchet is in the way. So yeah, we can continue on what we are doing now. Route it from the alternator to underneath the idler pulley onto the water pump. So I was able to put the belt on the alternator and the idler on top. And now just giving it some tension now to put it over the water pump so that the belt doesn't come off. Trying to put it on the water pump now.
We're going to have to do this all at the same time so I can put everything on the pulleys. I'm probably going to put it on the crank pulley last, although you're supposed to try to put it on the smooth pulley last, as that's easier, but some things are in the way here. So the game plan is going to change. It's not really a difficult job, but it can be a little tricky on this model. However, um, the issue is I have the camera in the way, so I'm trying to film this for you guys. So anyhow, I'm going to reinsert the ratchet and see if I can able to put the belt back in. In case your ratchet does get stuck, you can pry against the engine and on the frame in order to get it up. Just use a pry bar and just pry against the water pump bolts here and the frame just a tight bit, and you'll be able to get the ratchet up. I'm using a shallow 14 socket. It's a snap-on shallow socket. I'm going to try this again. We'll need to take the drill bit out. It's on the floor. Install the belt. Make sure the belt is on the pulleys, otherwise it will not go in properly. I'm trying to get it onto the AC compressor. It's not in all the way. So you'll see the belt will feel loose. See, it will feel a little loose. That's how you know it's on the pulleys, but make sure that before you release the tensioner, that it's on all the pulleys. It's on the edge of the AC compressor pulley here. So make sure you double check your work, verify that everything is on the pulleys properly and that it's not riding against on the edges, because if it's riding on the edges and you leave it that way, it's going to tear up and rip the belt. So you want to make sure it's on the pulleys properly. For the smooth pulleys, is not that much of a big concern. It will automatically ride onto where it needs to. Just the main issues are the ribbed pulleys. Want to make sure it's on the pulley exactly and not riding on the edges. If you need to adjust the belt a little bit, you will need to relieve the tensioner a tiny bit to give it a bit of slack. So that way you'll be able to adjust the belt as needed. So once you know everything is on the pulleys properly, you can remove the ratchet out of the way. And and don't forget the socket. So just make sure that the belt is lined up properly on the pulleys. That's not riding against the edges. It's a bit hard to see down there. We'll be able to show you guys, but yeah. So just make sure everything is on properly before you start the engine. So we are going to start the engine now. So once you shut the engine off, just have a look at the belt again, just to make sure that everything is seated properly, and then you should be all good to go. After that, I didn't find any issues or noises inside the bearings or the pulleys. Everything seems to be okay at this mileage, but I recommend doing the tensioner and the idler at the same time, usually, if the customer is able to afford it. So usually when I service belts, I just like to leave the old one on the side mirror here. And I like to compare the old and the new. Sometimes you can use it like a vise or something, or you can use like the jack stand, and just compare the old and the new to make sure that they are the same lengths. The drive belt that I use for this Sienna van is the Continental belt. The part number is here, and you will see that pretty much all belts will have a, uh, some numbers and letters here. 7PK 1547. So the 7 means that it's a 7 ribbed belt. The P means that it's a metric designation, and the K means that this is an automotive belt as per the SAE J 1459.
And then 1547 is the effective length in millimeters. So this is the length of the belt, and then yeah, that's it. Continental is also an OE manufacturer for the for a majority of vehicles out there, so it's okay to use aftermarket belts. Continental gates, they're all good to use. You can use the original Toyota stuff. I think Toyota uses Bando belts. I think, if I'm not mistaken, a majority of parts is not even made by a Toyota. There's only a few in which Toyota owns uh, some shares of specific companies, but the other different companies, they make parts for vehicle manufacturers. Anyhow, here it just says belt maintenance. I believe that this is in miles and not kilometers. So it says 60,000 to inspect, 90,000 replace. So 60,000 miles is close to 96,000 kilometers for inspection and replace. 90,000 miles is approximately 144,000 kilometers. So the Continental company is telling us to replace our belts at 144,000. I'm not sure how many years. Well, it says right here 60,000 miles, 97,000 kilometers. They rounded up the numbers, and 90,000 miles, 145,000 kilometers. I don't know if it says how many years. I don't think it says years or anything. So, but usually these belts, they can go a very awfully long time, as you can see with this one, the old one. This is the old belt that was on here. I didn't show this yet, so we are going to be talking about it now. This vehicle has 310,000 kilometers approximately. Now, on the smooth side of the belt, you can see a bunch of like abrasion or cracking on the smooth side of the belt. And some of the belts can wear out on the edges here too. So now on the rib side, we're gonna have a closer look. You see some debris and pinhole cracks in the middle of the belts. You can see all the debris and stuff inside here. So that's not good. A little bit of a crack here. They're like microscopic cracks. Like you really need to have a good close look at them to see that even this belt is the original belt, and you don't really see cracking here. So you need to check this in a different way. So we're gonna use that gauge that I showed you earlier, the Daco gauge. Put it here to see if it moves too much or not. And sometimes you can see a gap. You can see in where the light is. I can put my pinky finger behind there, and you can see that the light is shining. I have my the high visibility stool here behind it, so you can see that there's a gap here. You can see it's worn out. It's not moving too much when I go side to side, but you can see that the light is passing through it. And then we can use the other end of the tool. Check each one. This tool is a little bent, and it's kind of sunk inside in there. I can barely feel it. This one, I'm not able to feel anything here. I'm not able to feel the plastic. I can barely feel the plastic for each rib. So this belt is worn out, although it was still working and going, and didn't break. But it's not good to be going on very old belts, because the risk of failure rises sharply when these belts are very old. So this belt is just as old as the vehicle, so almost 8 or 9 years now. So we're just going to reinstall the cover here. You just need to push back on the clip. I added some grease onto the bolts. Tying up the bolts down, and then we're going to reinstall the wheel after, and then that's it. So now I'm just going to conclude this video. I hope you guys found this informational, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And if you did, please consider to give it a like, and consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.